Stephen, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining me. The book, Mailman, My Wild Ride Delivering the Mail in Appalachia and Finally Finding Home. We're going to unpack all of that bit by bit. Let's start at the beginning. You're not your prototypical mailman in America, are you?
No, sir, I am not. I was laid off at the beginning of the pandemic after 25 years in advertising and marketing in different functions.
Blindsided by that, I'm
very
guessing.
much blindsided by it. You know, traditionally in any kind of a downturn in the economy, marketing and advertising always takes the first hit. They're the canary in the coal mine, right? And this was sort of like a mine collapse. Mm-hmm. So we were a small independent agency, and everybody just closed shop immediately. All our clients were just like, "Hey, it's been real. Thank you." In fact, I talk about it in the book. I was flying from home to New York by way of Charlotte, the airport in Charlotte, and I got called in the Charlotte airport by my boss. He said, like, "Don't bother coming to New York. Clients canceled the meeting. Oh, by the way, we're closing down the agency."
And you're done.
And you're done. So I literally walked back into the Admirals Club and was like, "I'm going to need a ticket home."
Right.
And so as I started looking for a job, the only outfit in town that was hiring was the United States Postal Service.
And there was an allure there, driven principally, as I understand it, by the accessing of healthcare.
Yes. So part of the thing I needed healthcare. I had a prostate cancer diagnosis. I still do. I'm under excellent care through Duke University. But as I started looking around, again, jobs were few and far between. But I noticed that through the Postal Service, good union job, there was healthcare available on day one, even as a probationary employee. And so I took a psychological test online, then went into Roanoke, did 2 weeks at the Postal Academy, and after that I was on the road.
Now help my audience understand, because you would come to this with a series of expectations that most people who've never been a part of the United States Postal Service would have. So help my audience understand what your expectations were and what reality was.
Yeah, I don't know, somehow in my mind it was sort of a jump cut to I'm whistling down a country lane with letters and there's like a pie cooling on a windowsill or something like that. And you know, my brother John told me, he's just like, "Well, man, this must be great. You just get in the truck and put in a podcast." And it's like, that's true.
But that's a fraction of it.
That's a fraction of it. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're at home and you're a citizen, a customer, you see the mailman coming up the walk, or you see him pull up to the end of your driveway. That's all you see. You see this,
right?
And he sticks it in the mailbox. And the reality is, you have to sort everything into route order in the morning. So there's the first class mail, what we call DPS, which is delivery point system. Then there's the little packages, those are called spurs. Then there's the parcels. Then there's some things we call raw mail, which is stuff that didn't quite get sorted at the processing center, so you get to sort it. And there's a thing that looks like a bookshelf at your workstation. So for Route 8, when I delivered Route 10, when I delivered Route 10, every address on Route 10 has a little slot, little pigeonhole, and you put everything in that, and then you take it all down in order, and you very carefully move it into your vehicle. And then as you go,
for a chef, this is like food prep.
Yes, you are your own sous chef.
Right.
Right. And Lord help you if you make a mistake there, because then you're going to have to fix it out on the road.
Right.
And so, you know, you learn really to invest the time in that in the morning, because it's really going to kind of make or break your day. And part of the problem is, you know, when you come in as the sub and you meet the regular that holds your route, they don't even think about it. They're talking to you. They're talking to each other over the tops of the cases, and they're not even hardly looking at it because it's all in their head.
Right. Geolocate this for me. Where did you do this work?
Sure. I did this in Blacksburg, Virginia, home of Virginia Tech, the Cambridge of the Appalachians.
Right, exactly.
And Blacksburg is where I grew up. My father was a professor of engineering there, though we are Appalachian by birth. Dad's originally from Weston, West Virginia, so we're just over the state line in southwestern Virginia. But you've got the Gownies and the Townies, and so you've got some of, Nobel Prize winning scientists at a R1 research school.
Right.
And just outside the town limit is Appalachia, are people living, in remote homes out in the countryside, much as their grandparents and great-grandparents.
And you write with great meaning in the book about the centrality of the COVID experience and the pure dependency some of your customers, your clients had on your delivery of packages, small, medium, and large.
Yeah. I delivered to one man, we were working, it's supposed to be 8 hours a day. Sometimes we were working 12, 14 hours a day, sometimes just to get the parcels out there. And I delivered to one man, a farmer, pretty late at night, and he thought I was the cops when I pulled up because I had flashers on the truck. And he said, you must have brought the machine that helps me breathe. And it was his CPAP machine that he used at night. And I thought about it. There was really, I guess UPS could have delivered it for him, but there was no other way for him to get that without him coming into town. And frequently, as I brought parcels to people's front doors, they were like, you're the first person the first person that's not living here that I've seen face to face in 2 months, 3 months, And they would almost be like, oh, here you are, proof of the outside world, I
mean, like you were a representation that the outside world still existed, which they were not feeling or experiencing.
No, and I actually think and I do talk about this in the book, I think it's important that actually I was part of the United States government. I was part of their government, and that I was still here. The working title for this book was The Last Mile. And in some ways I was the last mile of the US government. But I was still there. And there was almost a sense of relief sometimes when people would see me walking up the driveway, and that the outside, like you said, the outside world is still out there. Things are still going on. Maybe we'll get back to something like normal after this.
The final 3 words, finally finding home.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So, I grew up in Blacksburg. It is a small town. My mother and my father and my grandmother, who I call Granny, and me and my 2 brothers and our 2 dogs and our cat all lived in a pretty small home. And by the time I was 18, as I joke in the book, I'd have done crime to get out of Blacksburg, right? I was just like, I was ready to do just about anything. Yeah, fortunately, I got into NC State and got to go to college. But if you had told that version of myself that, 30-some years on, you would be coming home and voluntarily moving back to Blacksburg, I'd have said you were nuts. But when I did that, when I moved back to Blacksburg, one, my girls got to be very close with my mom and dad, who turned out to be wonderful grandparents, and my girls were very close with them. And it helped me get a lot closer to my father, and kind of mend some distance that we had against, with each other. And came towards the end, we were much closer, had a really kind of a peer, man-to-man relationship, and I'd have never have gotten that if I hadn't gone back to Blacksburg.
Was there a part of you when you started at the United States Postal Service that, well, I grew up here, I know everything, I know all the streets, this is no mystery here for me?
Yeah.
But there was a mystery.
I was wrong. So, there was never a route that I was put on that I wasn't baffled by some aspect, some hidden street, some house that didn't have numbers on it, was addressed weirdly, and when you talk to a letter carrier, they'll say like, oh, 313 Smith Street. It's like, no, I don't know. But they know exactly, they have an exact image of that house in their mind. And what was surprising to me as time went on, at least on the routes, the 2 routes that I carried the most, I got there, and in my mind, actually, I can still close my eyes and see every single house on that route. That's how closely your letter carrier, mailman or mailwoman, knows you as a customer. They know your home, they know your pets, they know when you come and go. It's a very close relationship because we come right to your front door and we do it every day.
Did you fall in love with it?
You know, there have been many days as I've returned to my regular job that I said, God, I wish I was back delivering the mail. Once you had the mail case up and you were out on the road, it was pretty hard to beat. Especially as a rural carrier. You're out in the countryside. And I came to actually relish like delivering the mail in the rain or in the snow. Sometimes I would be like, it's a challenge. To this day, when I see it, winter in the Appalachians can be really rough, where it'll get right down above freezing, and it's raining and it's windy, and
slick and dangerous.
And slick and dangerous. And I think, I hope everybody's okay today out there. I hope they keep warm and stay dry, because it's a tough job. What
are the other dangers that those who are not thinking about this with any frequency overlook when they think about their letter carrier?
Well, first off, you're driving a lot, right? And if you're a rural carrier, you might be driving your own vehicle, and you might be driving it from the passenger seat. So that is legal somehow. I don't totally understand. I asked questions about it at the academy, but I drove a Ford Explorer, and just a normal Ford Explorer, but I drove it from the right-hand seat. You just reach across with your leg and grab the steering wheel and put your foot on the pedals.
And you do that because?
Because you're on the right-hand side of the road delivering the mail. Right. And so that's a trick.
There's no other way to do it.
There's no other way to do it. We had a couple of carriers that had purpose-built vehicles that were right-hand drive. But for the most part, people just drove. If you were on a private vehicle route, you just drove it from the right-hand seat. And that has its own risks, obviously, and
orientations and everything.
Yeah, And I unfortunately have long legs, but wasp nests. People they'll spray the wasp nests around their house, but they won't spray the wasp nests hanging under their mailbox. I had one mailbox that I should have noticed the vacant card in the case in the morning, but I pulled up and was trying to deliver some mail to it, and I opened it up, and just before I had thought about it, I had jammed a handful of mail into a hornet's nest that was inside the mailbox. And I mean, they came boiling out of there. So, I fortunately had zipped off, just kind of instinct, zipped off before any of them got on me.
Or in the cab.
And
Wow.
the sky turned black behind the car. It was scary. But dogs, slips and falls, rain, sleet, the heat. Particularly in the...
Just for the record, that's Hornet Story. This is when this all became a horror movie for me.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I am no
Straight up horror movie.
I am no great fan of... I will never, to my dying day, I will not forget the sound and the feeling that the mail made as I crunched it in there. And that was what...
Yeah, I'm like about ready to pass out.
Okay,
right
well,
now. Okay.
We can move on, Major. We can move on from this now.
I'm deeply traumatized. Just thinking about it. Did you feel in this experience, temporary though it was, a part of something larger in the American infrastructure?
I did.
Government and public service?
It is the 250th anniversary of the founding of what became the United States Postal Service. Ben Franklin was our first Postmaster General.
Yeah.
And, at the risk of sounding a little goofy and sincere, I felt that. I felt I was part of something that people that were delivering mail to George Washington and his troops, I was in that same job. And I was part of that brother and sisterhood of people, and that I was part of something bigger than myself. When I would meet those customers who had not seen another living soul in a couple of months, and I got to be there for them, I was like, okay, this actually isn't just about me. They weren't happy to see Steve. They were happy to see the mailman. They were happy to see the USPS there doing their job. And it meant a lot to them, and it meant a great deal to me.
You lament in the book, though, that there's an indifference bordering on mistreatment of frontline USPS personnel.
There certainly can be. Listen, I had customers that every morning they put a cooler, when it was hot out, they put a cooler on their front porch, and there was Gatorade and water in there for us and some snacks. There were cold mornings where I had one customer come out and give me a cup of coffee, and they were like, "Hey, when you're done, just put the mug in the mailbox." And those are the kind of people that if to deliver their mail, I had to crawl over broken glass, I'd have done it for them. And there were other people that just treated you like you were less than human. And I would say the overwhelming majority of people were really always kind.
But some of the lamentations I read in your book was about the way the government treats USPS.
Well, now that's a different story. And so, look, the fact that we were on the road in vehicles like the LLV, which is a long life vehicle, and the FFV, which was a later version of it. These were on the road when I was in high school, okay? That's a long time ago. I'm not a spring chicken.
Right.
And no crash, no airbags, no crumple zones, no air conditioning. Today, air conditioning safety equipment, I don't know how, we have had carriers die in Houston from heat stroke.
Mm-hmm.
The UPS, their union, 2 summers ago successfully striked and got air conditioning added to the UPS vehicles, but we can't because of the way that our collective bargaining agreement is written. And as far as the government's concerned, that's okay. Letter carriers are cheap, and I guess putting air conditioning in all those vehicles is expensive. And this silliness over finally we were going to get new vehicles out there on the road that were going to have all these modern features in them. And it's like, no, let's undo the order. Let's put, because for some reason battery vehicles are bad. Just any new vehicle that had modern safety equipment in it to protect the carriers and the customers.
You also write in the book about the one-click culture.
Yeah.
The idea that we have, in the e-commerce era, grown so accustomed to the click that we don't think about the humanity involved from the click to delivery.
That's right. And and Amazon will show you their warehouses that show these robots zooming around on a floor, and it's just like, that's great, and that's a nice clip. But at the end of the day, still there's a human being that's having to transfer every single box into a truck. And at the other end of that is another delivery person, somebody from the UPS or FedEx or from the Postal Service. And during the pandemic, I never faulted anybody that needed something or wanted something. But at some point you're like, did you really need, the flats of Gatorade? Like, maybe the mail was not the mechanism for that. Or the chest of drawers sized box of oatmeal. I mean, like, you couldn't, Kroger had curbside delivery. Maybe I didn't have to bring this to your house.
Right.
And
was curbside delivery such an imposition that you could not do that? The only option you had was to have the chest of drawer size box of oatmeal.
That's right. And to dump it on your letter carrier.
Right.
And I don't think it's a deliberate cruelty on anybody's part. Amazon just makes it look like I do this and then the Amazon ferry brings it in my window. And that is not, in fact, the middle 3 chapters of that book are about what happened when there was an Amazon contract dispute between them and UPS. Mm-hmm. And so we carried everything for a couple of months there. And it
massively stressful.
It was insane. Yeah, it was insane.
Is there a movie in here?
I sure hope so.
And who plays you? Who plays you, Stephen Starring Grant? Come on. I know you've thought about this. Don't tell me, brother, you have not thought about this.
But many have. I've heard Jesse Plemons. We had, babe, who's the guy from Silver Lining Playbook? Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper. Yeah. Well,
Bradley
you could do worse.
I could do a lot worse. I've heard Ryan Reynolds. These are all upgrades for me, but it's Hollywood,
I know you're listening, Hollywood. We love this show. The guy, Stephen Starring Grant, the book, Mailman, making it a movie. I'll go see. I'll buy you a ticket. Thanks, man.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.